cut myself. Veterans Day, we're so grateful and thankful for our veterans and our military ones that serve now, and certainly we're going to honor them at one of the games coming up soon. But uh, just so appreciative of all the sacrifices they've made for our country. Texas, really, really good. Um, Very talented up front, offensively, skill wise. Quarterback, got guys, they want to get the ball to the edge, put you on space. Hard to tackle when they get out in space. We certainly have um, worked that last week. Defensively, they're big. Uh, I'm not going to say simple. You know where they're going to line up. They remind me a lot of when I was at Georgia. The types schematics that they're running. That's what Georgia's defense did a lot. Basically, they're saying we're better than you. We're going to line up and whip your butt type mentality. But they have some very, very good players. I think their linebackers are very, very good and just really talented. Coach Sarkisian does a wonderful job with them. Certainly, since we played them the last time, they're quite a different team. Their talent level is certainly a lot faster, bigger than what they were the last time we played them in here. We do understand the rivalry, and we've tried to educate the kids on the rivalry. Um, we showed them tape on the 64 game. They chuckled a little bit. It wasn't quite as clear as nowadays tape. But Coach Hatfield running the punt back, and then the 69 game when I believe it was President Nixon was at the game. Unfortunately, we lost that one. The 91 game over in Little Rock, we won, I believe, 15-14, which I think was the last Southwest Conference game. We showed them the 14 game, uh, and then we showed them the 21 game. So we're trying to understand. I think Sark said it the best is, that Arkansas might dislike Texas more than they like themselves. It might be a true statement, and we understand that. So rivalry games matter, and we're certainly looking forward to the challenge that we have, which is a huge challenge against a great Texas team.
Yeah. When people talk about their offense, it's the motions and the misdirections. There was a play the other day where they fake sweep, fake inside, and then go
ran a reverse off of it.
So, what's the challenge in getting ready for all that? What he does?
Well, you do that, and then with speed, that's they are as good a screen team. In other words, something just what you mentioned, one way counter back the next way with screens, whether it be wide receiver, running back. Uh, they want to get the ball on the edge and get you in space, and that's exactly the play you were talking about, the counter reverse. Um, so we certainly have to practice it. We have to have our edge. We have to turn everything back inside. We have to. If they get outside of 21 other guys, we're in trouble. And so we've got to turn the ball back in. We've got to chase the ball, and we have to play extremely hard. But there's a lot of challenges there.
You brought this up a minute ago, but the 21 game, the analysts looked at that and said, okay, Texas now knows what it needs to do to be ready for the SEC. What have you seen in their roster build and their makeup since then?
I think NIL has certainly changed the game with a lot of people, but I think they took full advantage of that. Obviously, they're University of Texas, so they have a strong brand, but you combine that with I think Sark knew exactly what he needed, and he's built it that way, coming from Alabama, and he's been in the league. And I think he knew exactly what he needed, and I think he went out and got it, and it was size, and it was certainly speed, And he went out and everybody knows you've got to have a quarterback, and he's got two of them that are maybe three. I've seen two that are extremely good players.
I guess prior to the Ole Miss game, you mentioned all the talent that was up front defensively for Ole Miss. Does this week kind of have a similar feel with all the talent up front on Texas's defensive line?
It does. They're not quite as complicated. That's a good question. They're not quite as complicated, but they're big and very, very physical. Um, um, so yes, I think anybody that's in the top 5, 10, maybe 15 in the country, I think all those teams are very, very talented on the D line and offensive lines, and that's the case with Texas. Maybe that needs to be closed.
You mentioned showing, rivalry tape from previous games. Is that something that you've always done maybe before a big game, or is that something you've, adapted recently?
Well, I think you have to educate the kids on how big the game is to the fans, to the university. Um, I think there's rivalry games matter. I think this is one that certainly we haven't played them in a long time, but I wanted them to understand that. And I told the team, I said, if you ask before the 21 game, which we hadn't played them but one time in, I don't know, several years, or a few times in several years, the fans would say Texas is the biggest rival that we have. So I think you have to educate the kids for that because um, you can play better in a rivalry game if you believe it's a rivalry. And certainly we're going to have to play our best to be able to win the game.
Jaquindon seems like a guy that kind of would almost create reasons to get motivated in his head. And this one, there's probably no reason. What's his motivation like? And I got to imagine he's been eyeing this game since he originally rolled at Texas.
Well, I know it's a big game for him. He's from, the Dallas area, I guess, and we'll see how he should practice today, and so we'll see how he is. But if he's going to be motivated, which he will be, this is the one to get up for, and so um, he talked about it when we were recruiting him as well. So we're hoping that he's healthy and be able to show his talents.
Texas, I believe, has both their coordinators, a lot of continuity. For like 4 years, you've had that before with Barry and Kendall
Yeah.
for 3 years. What does that mean to a program when you have that kind of continuity with the head coach and the coordinators?
Well, Trey, that was one of them. My biggest fears, whenever I took the job, is getting the coordinator right, which I believe I did. Obviously, Barry's doing great, and KB just put up I don't know how many on Oklahoma State, and they're bowl eligible and doing a good job. Um, so I think if you have who you want, I think it's very, very important to try to keep them. And certainly we went through ours, and I'm pleased with who we have at coordinator right now, and but at coordinators on both sides of the ball, all three positions. But um, I think you can grow your program more. I think it has a lot to do with recruiting as well. When people leave, it's always a question of why. Why are they leaving, and it affects recruiting as well. And that stability with Kyle and them, I think that means a lot to any program, but especially at the University of Texas.
Sam, looking at the tapes the last couple games and then looking to Texas, have there been any changes or adjustments in the secondary as you guys start to game plan looking at how things have gone the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, we certainly have made it very competitive back there. If you asked me who was going to start at safety, I would say let's wait a couple more days. We've made it that much of a battle. Same thing at the corner spot. I think uh, you have to do that. If you'll lose your room if you don't. If you don't challenge with guys that are twos, they're going to be going, well, I just watched the tape and maybe I should have an opportunity. And so we certainly are doing that, not just with, well, we may get you in the game with going out there first, with starting. And we've done that with at least 3 of the 5 positions, possibly 4.
Point maybe, did anything change after that Tennessee game that you maybe have seen on tape, or you felt like maybe guys were just out of place or out of assignment, or was there anything specifically that jumps out on why things were so different?
I didn't think we played as hard against Ole Miss. Um, I did not feel that way against LSU. I thought that we played hard. I thought our matchup that night wasn't great. Nussmeier was really on, and so were the wide receivers. But we were 16-10 with 5 minutes left in the third with the ball. Ole Miss was certainly a different story. It was almost like they knew exactly what we were going to do defensively and could combat it because Dart was certainly on. We couldn't get to him, and we had a hard time covering him. I think to answer your question, our concern is more about a trend that went last year and to this point. And last year, we didn't challenge. In other words, we didn't say, hey, let's put somebody, let's give another opportunity here. And this year we have. So, like I say before, we tried so many different things against Ole Miss that none of them seemed to work. But it all goes down to I just didn't feel like we played as hard as what we normally do. And we've got to certainly get back to that to have a chance.
And you mentioned Jaquindon. You hope he practices today. Any updates on Talon, whether he was able to practice last week, and how's he looking right now?
Talon practiced every day last week, and I believe that he'll be fine. Braxton's going to practice today. We'll see how long he lasts or if he can go for an extended period of time. I think that's June Causer's beat up a little bit. I think that's about it. Braylon will be fine. He'll practice today.
And you've mentioned the struggles a little bit with some of the more veteran quarterbacks. How does Quinn Ewers maybe differ or be similar to Nussmeier and Dart?
You look at them; they're scary. They're dangerous at wide out and running back out of the backfield. And Ewers throwing the football. He has one of the fastest releases of guys I've seen. I mean, he can throw a bubble screen and it's out, it's halfway there, and you don't even see him throw it. I mean, he's really, really talented. He got an extremely strong arm. So there are some similarities there, and what are you gonna do? You're gonna try to cover, obviously. You're gonna try to get to him. You're gonna try to move the point. They're good enough offensive line wise where you're going to have to send some guys to get to him because he has such a quick release. And then therefore, when you do, you're going to have to be in some type of either zone 3 or man to man. And so we'll have to pick and choose our times there. But we have to mix it up on him, and we have to disguise better than what we have. And I think that goes back to your question a little bit. I think part of it is we've got to disguise our coverages better than what we have.
How about just a thought, Coach, on a Sark team? What are a couple qualities that you feel like Sark teams tend to bring to the table?
Explosive offenses. I mean, like I said before, the national championship one, he was OC at Alabama. I thought was the greatest called game I'd ever seen by an offensive coordinator. Perimeter explosiveness, and he uses his talent really, really well and has plenty of it. But I just think the guy's a mastermind offensively, and he'll be a huge challenge with the talent that he has as well.
One follow-up would just be, you mentioned the history in your opening thoughts there, Hogs, Horns, Nixon coming, all that stuff. I mean, you've always been well aware of that. How relevant do you feel like Arkansas, Texas is today in terms of college football?
Well, I'll answer that like this. When we played them in the Texas Bowl in 14, it was like, and I hadn't been to the national championship game at that point, you know. I hadn't been to Georgia, then, but it felt different when we got off the bus and you're sitting there. There's 2 6-6 teams, and it was electric, and then when we come in here at that point, I think that was the largest crowd we'd had in several years, and the rush in the field and all that kind of stuff. So you can just feel that rivalry, you can feel it from our people, and I don't know if I answered your question, but
So you mentioned Talem's, you think he's going to be good to go, but the way Malachi played against Ole Miss in the second half, does that maybe give you more confidence where if Talon isn't fully where he needs to be, that you could, go with him?
absolutely. He did a great job. I mean, great job of throwing the football, throwing it early, very accurate, and ran over some people. And Malachi played extremely well, and we're glad we have him, and have a lot of belief in him when he goes in the game, and that certainly helped. From the other night too.
One more on the history from someone who's seen about 43 of these games. I'm wondering, when was your first one to see? Do you remember, like, was it on television? Had you seen the game ever before you were coaching here?
I don't think so. I think the first time I ever saw one was when we were in Texas, playing in the Texas Bowl, to be honest with you. I don't remember watching it before then. I wish I could answer it different, but that's the truth.
Sam, you mentioned yours a minute ago. Specifically, what really impresses you about him? And then follow up, Arch Manning. I mean, in this day and age, nobody like that hangs around to be a backup, but he did. What do you think first about yours specifically? What makes him really good, and then the quarterback dynamic there? Because yours was out for a little bit. Manning comes in. I mean, nobody has two quarterbacks like that.
I think he's got the confidence of Jackson Dart, that kind of type of confidence. I think he has a great belief in his O-line. You can just feel it. You can feel it on the film. And his wideouts are incredible. Running backs used as wideouts, bubble screens. So I think he has a lot of talent around him, but I think he has a lot of confidence, probably has since he was a young man. And but he's very accurate and got an incredibly strong arm. With Manning, I saw him make a play running to his left that they would have showed on SportsCenter if it was Mahomes did it. But he just did it the other day in the game. And the touch on that pass and the accuracy running to his left was incredible. And, I'm sure it says him staying there. I'm sure it says something about his family. And he's got a family that certainly has had a lot of success. And so I'm sure they're helping him with some of his decisions and to stay nowadays and do that is a notable achievement or a notable accomplishment for a guy to do that now, especially a guy with his type of talent.
I guess you can look at this both two different ways. But this is the fourth SEC team. So everybody that comes into playing favor, the fourth SEC team that's ranked, and I guess the third that's like top 10.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the league's really good, a lot of good teams in the league, and the great thing this year is you've seen teams unranked being able to beat teams that are ranked and are ranked high. Vanderbilt's win, certainly our win against Tennessee, and but it's people that aren't in our league, they think, well, we can go beat so and so one time. Well, you might can, but you just said it. I mean, this is our fourth or fifth or whatever ranked team that we played, or sixth or whatever it is, and Yeah. And, uh, it's a gauntlet and you have to stay healthy and you have to play well each week. And if you don't, as we saw 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago now, if you don't play well, you can get embarrassed. And that's how good the league is. And so we're in it because that's where we want to be and that's where we belong. But it's a difficult league, certainly is for everybody. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of really good teams with 2 losses in the league, and that says something about the SEC.
And you've been given a countdown clock on your hip, to the extent that you can. Is that like a cumulative injury, or did you have one specific injury? And what's the countdown at now?
Well, my hip, I found out about my hip about 150. Well, once I get to surgery, about 135, 40 days ago, and it just went out, just and so I found out I need to get a new hip. And it was at a point in time where it was so close to the season starting that I just didn't feel like I could do it. And as it's gone on, it's gotten sore and sore. I've got I'm bone on bone and I've got a chip. I've got a broken hip. And, which is, it is what it is, sore. But as soon as we get through, with the Missouri game, between that and the postseason, I'm gonna get a new hip.
What do they tell you about the rehab time? Were you back on your feet during practices?
Yeah, I think that I'll be able to walk out of the surgery and then I should be, that first week after the Missouri game is kind of a dead week for us because the kids are in finals or it's the last week of school, I guess. And I wanted to have it where I could move around pretty good by the time that the portal opened because that's very, very busy. You can sit down and do it, but it's easier to stand up and move around a little bit. But that's really the only time I just didn't feel like I could get it done before the season and be effective and but it's sore, Tom, you can't ever get off of it. You can't set off of it, you can't sleep off of it. You obviously can't walk off of it. So anybody's had, you know, bone on bone hip, um, knows that it's irritable and it's hard to sleep and those things. But I've made it 130 something days of it, and I can make it another 19, 20, whatever the number is. It's 22. He's asking.
You got other guys on the team, obviously from Texas, Andrew and Talon, of course, and Jalen, Brad, Landon.
You
Any of
about
those
said
guys?
the captains for this week.
Yeah. Or have those guys said anything about the opportunity to play Texas and their home state?
They haven't this week. They did in the summer, when we took them down to the SEC media and all that, of course it was in Dallas, but it's a big deal to, whether the university offers you or not a scholarship. I think that has something to do with it too. You're always trying to prove somebody wrong, if they didn't offer you a scholarship and but I think anytime you play some team from your state, it's a big deal, and obviously the kids know it's a huge rivalry.
A lot of nutty tiebreaker scenarios for the SEC with no divisions. I'm curious, have you had any discussions with other coaches around the league about the first year without divisions, or just what your thoughts have been on this kind of new era?
I really have not. I mean, if we were closer to in it, I would, but I haven't. I don't know how it's all going to play down. There's a lengthy list of how you can get to who's going to play in the championship game. Hopefully, the head-to-head will be the key reason of why someone's playing, why somebody's not. But I really haven't had a lot of discussion on it.
Okay. the SEC is still trying to look and figure out what they're going to do with the schedule in the future. And there's a lot of talk of a 9-game schedule. Texas is Texas a team you want to see permanently on the schedule just because of the rivalry, or is it one you want to avoid because they're Texas?
Well, our rivalries, we got Missouri, we got a boot for LSU. We've got a freaking something else for A&M. We got, we got plenty of rivalries. To sit here and say, oh yeah, I want to play Texas every year, but then who you going to trade them for? LSU, you're going to trade them for, you understand what I'm saying? So, I think the way that they did it before was that we could get a home and home with everybody in the league. If you were here for 4 years, if you were a 4-year student and you played for us for 4 years, you'd get a home and home with everybody in the league at an 8-game schedule. To go 9, in my opinion, would be ridiculous. I mean, you see what's going now. I mean, you got two lost teams trying to get in the playoffs. It wasn't broke before. I mean, we were playing for the national championship all set for last year forever in our league. And to me, 8's plenty. And then had to figure out exactly how to get to the championship game. But we don't need 9. I mean, everybody be limping into the postseason play. And the other thing too is I think it's something about college football, and you go out and play somebody that you never played before, as in we're going to play Notre Dame next year. And there's no way in the world you're going to schedule 9 SEC games and Notre Dame. We might, but we shouldn't. I mean, by that time you're playing the playoffs is what you're doing. And so I think most guys in the league would say 9 would be too many.
Also, you dismissed Ty Washington a couple of weeks ago. He had comments about that. Do you have any response to that at all?
Oh no, I don't have time to get into that. He's not on the team, and I hope he does good, and we'll just move on.
Yes, Sam. And it's weird. If Arkansas had won the big shootout, they probably would have played Notre Dame, the Cotton Bowl.
What's that again?
That if Arkansas had won the big shootout in '69, they probably would have played Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl. That wasn't my question.
In '69?
Yeah, that's who Texas beat.
I might have watched that game.
Yeah. but Texas, I'm sure as good as Georgia is, Texas didn't expect to lose to anybody in Austin. Georgia went in there and beat them pretty good. And then, Texas went to Vandy, and that was a tough game because Vandy's a lot better than people think. And they took it to Florida pretty good. Just what have you seen Texas respond from that Georgia loss?
I think very well. I think they're pretty healthy. I think their team's pretty healthy, and they certainly have the depth if they can play several guys, which they do. And when you can do that, I think especially in game 10, 11, 12, you're going to respond. 9, 8, you're going to respond a little bit better than those guys that's losing a key component. Not necessarily there's a big difference between 1 and 2, but I think they've responded extremely well. They're, what are they, 3rd in this country right now and doing good.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.